Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be checking out our good old Carnage doing a solo on Maestro in Labyrinth of Legends. So I did a full-on clear with Carnage mainly, and just to check out how he does, and he did extremely well. I did use a couple of revives along the way. Most of them were due to my own kind of misplays, so on and so forth. But as the fight is happening in the background, I just wanted to discuss how the run go and what were like the biggest banes of the fights and so on and so forth. So unlike the popular opinion that if opponent is bleed immune, Carnage does no significant damage, that is absolutely false. Actually, that armor break and the increase of damage Carnage puts out on his regular hits are almost compensating for his bleed damage, so there is no significant change. It is slightly longer, but the bleed immunity in itself doesn't significantly increase the fight time. The things that do increase the fight time are annoying abilities such as if you're unable to be aggressive in case of Unstoppable Colossus, for instance. That was one of the trickier fights where I did end up dying at the very end of the fight, but it was because I realized the correct method, how to use Carnage and abuse his ability of unblockable attacks a bit too late. There is definitely a relatively easy way how to solo Unstoppable Colossus with Carnage, and the key of doing that is starting to launch your special attacks whilst Colossus is still unstoppable, thus giving you much higher chance to refresh that armor break and without having a need to reapply it later. It just works out so much better if you use that time he's unstoppable to kind of like preparing and launching your special attack and just making sure that the very last part of it actually connects once unstoppable buff expires, and then that fight would have been a lot more manageable. Now I did use Carnage as well in Magic fight, and I did get magic down to about 40%, I believe, with Carnage, and then I had to finish her off. So that fight probably isn't the best suited for Carnage, even though Carnage does quite well in that fight as well because of Despair Mastery. Obviously, you can kind of ignore the limbo and you can push through it and she won't heal much from it. But by far, by miles, the biggest annoyment fight was Ant-Man, because that glancing just messes with absolutely everything in Carnage's toolkit. There will be times when your passive buffs won't switch depending on which hits you land if they get glanced, so you're gonna end up getting the wrong buffs. There will be times when launching a special attack you will not start preparing a buff. Obviously, refreshing the bleeds is going to be much more tricky, and keeping the bleeds on. And that fight was an absolute nightmare with Carnage. I highly recommend having a plan B for that fight if you are ever going to use Carnage in Labyrinth. But for vast majority of the fights, he did fantastic. The clear time of him is quite an impressive in Labyrinth. An average opponent, I believe, takes about, 5 minutes, something like that. It doesn't take long at all. He does have like a ramp up of about 80-90 hits, but a lot of those hits are composed of special attacks, and the power gain lets you throw special attacks quite quickly. And as soon as you have ramped up, you have very kind of linear damage output that is really high. And that works wonders in Labyrinth. Obviously, you do not need to kind of like rely on your parry outside of your first couple of heavy attacks. If you were able to parry all the time in Labyrinth, and there would be another strategy that could be employed by spamming heavy attacks, and it's something I might want to test out on an opponent in Abyss at some point. Even though Carnage's inflated hit count is really bad for Abyss, I do believe that there might be a reasonably good way how to try and use Carnage and play him by spamming as many heavy attacks as I can, trying to keep dozens of bleeds at all times on the opponents and let them tick out. So that would be quite interesting experiment for maybe a bit later on in the time. There we saw that I did mess up and I accidentally ate one level 1 from Maestro, and that also unfortunately nullified a couple of my buffs which I needed to regain. And now we can also talk a bit more about this Maestro fight in particular. And using a Cosmic class champion is pretty much the best option you have against Maestro, because whenever you are evading his special attacks, you gain the dexterity buff. The enigmatic ability Maestro has against Cosmic Champions is to nullify a buff, basically per hit on his special attack. But in all of these cases, we can see I consistently trigger dexterity by evading the beams of the special attack, and then Maestro nullifies it, but I could not care less. So effectively, Maestro has no enigmatic ability against any and all Cosmic Champions. Yes, there is a nullify, and if you mess up, it's going to nullify something, but for vast majority of the fight, Maestro is just nullifying that dexterity buff, which is not important at all, so Cosmic Champions can go in as perfectly normal and treat this Maestro as a Star-Lord, for instance. There's not much difference between those two fights, except for animations and the passive furies, I guess. Still, you guys get the point. And thanks to Carnage's great damage output, we can clearly see that he's taking down this Maestro in fairly swift pace. Now we're just above 5 minutes in this fight, and Maestro is already halfway down. I believe total fight length was there about 10 minutes or so. So that is certainly a respectable speed. You can take down opponents faster if you can maintain more aggressive. Unfortunately, Maestro's animations and special attacks are quite slow. They're quite long. That special 1 animation is quite long. Therefore, for most part, you're not really able to stack out too many bleeds as you would be when you're fighting like Star-Lord or I don't know, Electro or somebody else, because those animations do take quite a bit of time here. But luckily, since you have amped up at the beginning of the fight, you have extremely high crit rate, and anything you do basically does above average damage. We can see that even the brutal crit damage on like level 2s at this point is like 24k plus. In some of the fights, depending on how my buffs are stacked, Carnage can drop close to 40k level crit on that level 2, and it is preceded by many smaller crits as well. So he definitely has quite high damage potential. In some of the matchups, I was doing like 14-15k medium crits and well above 10k medium crits in most of the matchups. So he certainly does have quite immensely potent damage output, and that's why I love him. That's the main reason why I love him, his animations and the crazy damage, because once he's ramped up, his damage comes from everywhere. His damage comes from bleeds, his damage comes from buffs, and you get to spam your hits like crazy, and you have power gain, so you can be more aggressive, and he is just extremely fun to play, as you guys can probably see. This was one of the kind of easier and most fun Maestro fights where I felt as if though I'm bullying Maestro, because I'm consistently pressuring that Maestro in the corner, I'm consistently throwing unblockable special attacks that look amazing, and the only thing I need for Maestro to do is to throw his own special attacks. I do not need to intercept too often, I do not need to rely on my parries. Here and there I do block bait out the special attack, because why not, playing it safe than sorry. I really wanted to get in this solo as well, because last run, not the last run, but the run before that, I nearly soloed him with Colossus and I messed it up in the last couple of seconds. The last time I went there with Colossus did just fine as well. But yeah, so here we can see that 370 hits plus whatever I had before I messed up. So I think the total hit count is going to be about 600, but once again, that hit counter is quite a bit inflated as opposed to the time it takes. And when we're talking about time, this is a relatively speedy Maestro solo compared to vast majority of the champions in the game. So there we can definitely see that Carnage is in fact one of the highest damage per second dealing champions in the game. And I just want to highlight that fact. I want people to recognize it. Many people think that Carnage's damage output is mediocre and that he just has cool animations or something like that. No, his damage output is crazy. He can get 20k plus bleeds if you're aggressive enough, so on and so forth. But here, the fight is over. Final hit count is 603 there, I believe, if I see it correctly. Maybe I don't, who knows. But that will also do for today's video. Just a little bit of shout out to Carnage, I suppose. Also, thanks to everybody who tuned in for the stream and supported the stream as I was doing this run live on my channel. And yeah, I believe that will be enough for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, then do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I will catch you guys soon. See ya.